break. We are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Horst Schaaf, who is an inventor, and he's a physics PhD. He is someone who tackles problems, and you're going to want to look at some of these problems that he's tackled. It's basically about lower back pain and all that is involved with that. Go to Corewerks.com, Corewerks.com. You're going to learn a lot more. Horst, you talked about horse therapy.
Yes.
You talked about your son riding on a horse. We're going to show a video of the position of someone riding in a horse in a minute. But what was it that made you put him on a horse in the first place?
We have a very talented physical therapist up in Bellingham, and she mentioned one day, we are doing a lot of horseback riding therapy now with kids with cerebral palsy. Why don't we try it with Matthias? And said, yeah, okay, let's see how it goes. And so we put him up, sat behind him, and immediately he tried to sit up straight. He tried to correct for his posture. And we did it a summer long up in Bellingham, and we saw some progress coming from that. But if you look at Bellingham, you have 1 hour a week for horseback riding, and when it rains, you have no chance. So,
and it rains a little bit up there because you're in the rain shadow.
Yes, it does. And so...
do we have that video? Let's go ahead and play the video. And if you would, as we see this person, would this be something like what your son would be experiencing as he rode on a horse? This person's sitting erect.
This person is sitting very erect. The only difference is when you do horseback riding therapy, you go in a walk, because otherwise you get also the pounding action of the horse, and which is not always optimum for your spine.
Yeah.
Because when you walk, you get just the sidewards motion and the side-to-side tilt.
But I mean, I guess the sitting erect is something that apparently you do naturally on a horse.
Yes, you do
Why
naturally.
is that?
Because when you put your femurs down, the upper legs, then your spine gets automatically pulled into an S-curve. And the S-curve has the advantage that the discs are evenly loaded. So there's equal loading in all sides, or even loading. When you sit in a chair, your femur to the chest is usually 90 degrees, which puts your spine into a C shape, which automatically puts an angle on the discs and creates pain over time. And the other part is, on a horse you move. In a chair, you sit still. So what happens is there is one input to your missing, which is the spinal input from the proprioceptors along the spine. These are little muscles, very deep layer muscles, which connect each vertebra. They feed up sensory feedback on how your spine is bent, rotated, or how fast you bend. In combination with your vestibular system, which is your balance system, this then acts as a control signal for stabilizing signals going down to muscles which go from the hip crest to the spine, which go from the femurs to the spine, and which go from the front abdominals to the spine. And those are muscles which form your core, which stabilize you. They work like a tent.
And you can train those muscles.
It's very hard to train them. Women do it with Kegel exercises when they have babies. But usually when you're in a sitting motion, you don't do that because they are automatically controlled.
The issue of lower back pain, and I don't want to sound like an infomercial because that's not what this is about at all. This is hardcore medical science, because just in MedPage today, and this came out of yesterday, it said that their low back pain was eased and extended release through this particular drug. And it says in industrialized nations, chronic low back pain represents the most common because of disability, or the common cause of disability. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, Americans spend at least $50 billion each year on low back pain. Let's go to the next quote. As many as 80% of Americans experience lower back pain in their lifetimes, and as many as 8% of these individuals have chronic low back pain. Now, was it that you were targeting this chair, or is this just a recognition from science that we got a problem here?
This is a recognition from science. The chair came along because I realized that low back pain is not a muscle problem, it's an integration problem. Because when you sit still, the so-called proprioceptors along your spine fall asleep, let's say it this way. And then your brain has an emergency mechanism where it uses the large superficial muscles, which are used for lifting and voluntary work, to stabilize you. And what that does, muscle for peak lifting, used for an endurance task. Now you imagine you have 50 pounds or 70 pounds and you hold it for 5 to 6 hours like this.
No, I can't imagine that,
And
actually.
your muscles are screaming.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening in
How
your
about
back.
if I'm in an airplane, my muscles are screaming just by walking in there and sitting down? I mean, and that
Yes.
chair is just horrible.
Yes, that's horrible. And the airplanes could massively benefit from a seat like this because you could wobble all the time.
I want to go to actually the next slide because, again, medical science is saying we're looking for something. And this comes out of the Telegraph in London, and it's actually describing a study involved here in Seattle. Acupuncture may reduce and help back pain research finds. And Dr. Josephine Biggs says that funded the spine trial, says the findings of this research show that acupuncture-like treatments, including simulated acupuncture, can elicit positive responses. Let's go to the next slide. This adds to the growing body of evidence that something meaningful is taking place during acupuncture treatments outside of the actual needling. Future research is needed to delve deeper into what is working these responses. The point being is that it's not drugs, it's something else.
It's not drugs, it's not surgery. Surgery is only good if you have really bad broken discs and so on. But if you now have, we are a sedentary society now. If you sit in front of your computer, sit in front of your desk, and sit in a stool slash chair like we're sitting right now, your proprioceptors fall asleep. Now, if you excite them by being able to move, because we were designed to move when we were created, then you actually use patterns which you learned in childhood effectively, and you stay healthier. And when you're in a conference, for example, I usually fall asleep in regular chairs because they just make me sit still, and what's closer to sitting still than sleeping? And if you now move along, you and can twitch, then your brain knows what to do. And there's actually the latest research shows that movement is very important for creating new neural synapses, forming memories, and learning new skills.
And actually, that's even a bigger point from my standpoint than lower back pain. And actually, I want to go to something that we've talked about before. We've talked about the core, and you talked about core strength. And there is a medical facility in Steamboat Springs that deals with injuries all the time. And they described what the core is. Let's go ahead and put that up on the screen. The core refers to the muscles that attach to the spine, shoulder, girdle, and pelvis that provide the necessary stability to hold your body upright with good posture. The core is the link between the upper and lower body. It provides the transfer of energy between the two halves. Core muscles include abdominals, hip flexors, and rotators, gluteals, shoulder, and back muscle. But what did they leave out here? They left out...
I think they actually left out the real core, which is really important for you. When you take your spine and take some muscles away, it's just a chain. And the only stable point for a spine would be hanging it on the top. But the muscles which keep your lumbar spine, where there's no bones around it, stable are those ones which I described before. The muscles from the hip crest to the spine, from the psoas major going from the femur to the spine, they form like a barrel around you to stabilize you, and that's very important. And those only get activated when you move. Because the proprioceptors along the spine, the sensors, really need that movement.
Okay, we're going to talk about that word in just a minute, but first I just want to remind everyone that we're talking with Dr. Horst Schaaf, who is an inventor. He is the founder of Corewerks. Go to the website corewerks.com. That's COREWERKS.com. You will learn an awful lot more about it.